everyone, and welcome back to another video review by Mere Lessons. The lens we'll be talking about today is the 6th edition to Olympus's Pro range, the 12-100mm f4. With its versatile focal range and constant f4 aperture, the 12-100mm is the perfect all-in-one lens for those who love capturing a variety of genres, from landscapes to portraits to street. For this reason, it is also an ideal travel zoom. Like all the other Pro lenses, the 12-100mm has a solid weatherproof build, a customizable button on the side of the barrel to which you can assign a number of functions, and a smooth focus ring that can be pulled back to enter manual focus mode. Pulling back the ring also reveals a distance scale in meters and feet. The zoom ring is large and comfortable, with just the right amount of resistance. Since zooming is external, the inner barrel extends when you turn the focus ring towards the telephoto end. On the side of the barrel next to the customizable button, you'll also find an on-off switch for image stabilization. The lens comes with a plastic petal-shaped lens hood that clips onto the lens barrel. It can be reversed over the barrel when not in use and does a good job of reducing flare and protecting the front element. The 12-100mm has a complex optical design with 17 elements in 11 groups and delivers exceptional image quality for an all-purpose zoom. In terms of sharpness, we found the performance excellent throughout the zoom and aperture range, with the exception of the slowest apertures where diffraction is pronounced. This applies at both infinity focus and shorter focus distances. While the best performance at 12mm can be found at f4 in the center, f5.6 and f8 aren't far behind. The corners aren't as sharp, but this can only be expected at this focal length. At 25mm, the performance continues to be excellent, with the sharpest apertures being between f4 and f5.6 at the center. However, even the corners are impressively sharp between f4 and f8. From 40mm to 100mm, the difference between f4 and f5.6 is almost non-existent. At these values, the lens still manages to extract an impressive amount of detail from the scene, as you can see from this example of the chain-link fence taken at 100mm on the EM1. Though it isn't a portrait lens, the 12-100mm is capable of producing a pleasant bokeh at the fastest apertures and longer focal lengths. The transition between out-of-focus areas is natural, and you can achieve good subject separation for headshots if you zoom in to 100mm. The bokeh balls are round in the center of the frame and only lose their shape close to the corners and the edges. The zoom also has an excellent minimum focus distance of 15 cm at 12mm, but it isn't very practical because at this distance, the front element almost touches the subject and can cast a shadow. The minimum focus distance becomes 45 cm once you zoom into 100mm, which still provides good semi-macro results. Although the lens benefits from zero coating, you may still come across some examples of flare in direct sunlight. It usually assumes the appearance of polygonal shapes or that infamous purple blob we've come to associate with Mica Four Thirds gear. We found some barrel distortion, as well as vignetting up to about 5.6 at the widest angles, but it isn't a serious issue. As for chromatic aberrations, I didn't come across a single relevant example during our testing period. Similar to all the Pro lenses, the 12-100mm autofocus mechanism is fast and accurate in single and continuous autofocus, especially on the latest Mica Four Thirds cameras. It slows down a little in poor light or in situations with low contrast, but this is only to be expected. The motor itself is deadly silent, which makes the lens a good companion for video work as well. Along with the 300mm f4, it is one of only 2 lenses within the M.Zuiko range to feature optical stabilization, and it does an exceptional job at all focal lengths. On the EM1 Mark II, the most advanced camera body from Olympus to date, the lens's optical stabilization works in tandem with the camera's 5-axis in-body stabilization, producing a system called Sync-IS. With this system, it is possible to take handheld shots at shutter speeds that until recently would have been unthinkable. The longest handheld exposure we ever achieved at 12mm was 20 seconds, which was only possible because we were leaning against a wall while taking the shot. but you can manage shots at 5 or even 10 seconds if you're very stable. At 100mm, it becomes more difficult to use slow shutter speeds, but we did manage a 2-second exposure a couple of times. On non-stabilized Olympus or Panasonic Lumix bodies, the optical stabilization does an excellent job on its own, though it doesn't match the capabilities of Sync-IS. At 12mm on the Lumix GF5, for example, the slowest shutter speed we managed was 4 seconds, while at 100mm the best result we got was 0.4 seconds. For video, it performs really well once again. Of course, you won't get the same amount of compensation as with sensor stabilization, but fixed shots are pretty stable and there isn't any visible jittering. In conclusion, I can't really find anything to say against the M.Zuiko 12-100mm except that it's a bit too large and heavy to be used comfortably on smaller micro Four Thirds bodies. I could also mention the price, which was around $1,300 at the time of its release, but it's justified by the solid weatherproof build, superior optical quality, flexible zoom range, constant aperture, fast and silent autofocusing, and impressive optical stabilization. As always, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. See you next time!